Happy Windrush Day. June 22nd. We've been gathering together as a nation to celebrate Windrush Day ever since 2018, so just 2 years really. But for most Brits, this marks the 72nd anniversary of the arrival of the SS Windrush in 1948 and the beginning of a significant black presence in Britain. So this may be the wrong time for me to bring up the African Roman soldiers that were here as part of the Roman Empire, or indeed the ivory bangle lady who was also Afro-Roman, middle class and living in 4th century York. I'm certainly not going to mention beachy head woman who predated her Roman sister, and though of sub-Saharan genealogy, seems to have been born and have lived in southeast England around 200 to 250 AD. And I'm definitely not going to bring up Cheddar Man, whose remains, showing dark skin and curly hair, make him the oldest Brit by some 10,000 years. No. Let's talk about our Windrush generation. It's their day, after all. We Brits know that this is when we recognize the contributions of our Caribbean population. Yes, the same population whose enslaved ancestors created the wealth for Britain to build an empire. Ancestors whose centuries of unpaid labor met with no reparations, but whose descendants, the Windrushers, paid their wealthy British slave owners for their freedom in the form of taxes until 2015. So, trying to determine the so-called contribution of the Windrush generation is surely like Britain going, yeah, but what have you done for me lately? Seriously. Surely the invitation to uproot, leave their families behind, and move to this mother country should have been a part of a thank you, an apology, and a recognition of a right to live the life paid for by the blood of their forebears. It is not okay for our government to give lip service to celebrating the Windrush generation, even as they plan stricter immigration policy, and whilst the unlawfully persecuted victims of the Windrush scandal remain unrecompensed. Mr. Johnson, Ms. Patel, how on earth do you think the betrayed Windrushers are living whilst you sit on the money you owe them? These people have lost jobs and incomes, homes have been repossessed, they have suffered ill health and loss of life through removal of health care, not to mention the cost to emotional and mental well-being. 2 years on, people are still destitute, homeless, and broken. This is your work, Team Johnson Patel. Only 60 people have so far received any kind of compensation out of thousands of claims. Out of a predicted fund of 200 million, just £360,000 have been redistributed between the 60 people. But the government is able to talk about spending nearly £1 million to paint its plane in pretty red, white, and blue colors. During this dangerous and distressing time of coronavirus, the betrayed Windrushers, like the Grenfell victims, have been left exposed and vulnerable by this government. Shame on you. In this moment of COVID and protest, I've noticed many placards declaring that racism is the real pandemic. It's true. Racism is a virus, and the carrier is not well. In that case, what does it say of a country when the whole system is racist? The thing about the racist virus is that it can be hard to detect. but it is highly contagious. The carrier may exhibit mild symptoms, say the tight clutching of a handbag, or more severe cases may lead to what we now call knee neck. The racist virus is probably the only fatal virus that does not affect the health of its host. Instead, the effects are felt by diverse ethnicities who come into contact with the carrier, and social distancing does not necessarily help. Those affected experience a range of effects from discomfort to anger or fatigue and even death. It's messed up. It makes no sense. In fact, it is this illogicality that makes me worry for the mental health of Britain. What does it do to your mental health to believe in a mother country only to be rejected and abused relentlessly by that mother? A mother who lies to you, a mother who hates you. No doubt it leads to the kind of depression and suicidal thoughts reported by the betrayed Windrushers facing detention and deportation. What does it mean to mental health on both sides if there has been a consistent black presence in Britain for 400 years only to be told you've just arrived? So we are back to those pesky Afro-Romans. Or okay, let's bring it closer. How about John Blank, the trumpeter who demanded and got a pay rise from Henry VIII? Or John Edmonston, who taught Charles Darwin taxidermy in the 1820s. Walter Tull, who played professional football for Tottenham in 1909. Okay, Tottenham, yeah, even I know I was pushing my luck with that one. Okay. We've been here and we've been political and asserting our identity for generations. The first Pan-African Congress was held in London in 1900, with further gatherings in 1921 and 1923. The West African Students' Union was formed in London in 1925. The League of Coloured People was formed in London in 1931. The Pan-African Federation was formed in Manchester in 1944, bringing together groups of black people from Manchester, London, Edinburgh, Glasgow, Cardiff, Dublin, Sierra Leone, Kenya, the then called Gold Coast, Ghana, and the West African Students' Union. In fact, the very SS Windrush itself carried returning servicemen who had already been here and fought in the war. And it was preceded by the ship the Almanzora, which had returned 200 Caribbean ex-servicemen to England in December 1947. I've noticed some young protesters carrying placards purporting that things will be different now because I am not my ancestors. Oh, I beg you, don't fall for the lie. Your forefathers and mothers have a proud and fierce history of resistance. The truth is, we weren't even supposed to be here. The system is constructed on the belief that our lives are expendable. Learn the lessons such as the Zong, whose human cargo were thrown overboard on the crossing from Africa. So the very fact of survival, believe me, was resistance. It's in our DNA. Don't let the 1948 Windrush tidal mark sever you from your powerful Caribbean history of Haiti, the Maroons, the Morant Bay Rebellion, Marcus Garvey, Paul Bogle, Morris Bishop, Uriah Buzz Butler, the Black Power Revolutionaries, Kwame Ture, and too many more. The actual enslaved were the first freedom fighters, even under the abuses of slavery. Our protests and demonstrations are shaped by these ancestors who took to the streets to demand their rights in processions such as Canboulay riots of 1881. In fact, Carnival evolved from the newly emancipated taking to the streets. And from this culture of protest and resistance, we now have Notting Hill Carnival, which brings in around £100 million in revenue to London each year. Protest as culture, culture as protest. Claudia Jones, the mother of British Carnival, explained that a people's art is the genesis of their freedom. Culture is how we will heal now. Culture is identity, it is history. It is the elegant photographs of Windrushes in Sunday best stood against proud studio backdrops, lovingly decorated front rooms, shebeens, Pan-African Saturday schools, and cricket. Culture is the means by which we know ourselves, the mirror in which we see ourselves. It is the Ras Chubby Nyabingi drummers. It is you and me here together today. Culture is how we respond to our environment. It is the language that we speak as a family. Without it, there is no way to envision, far less build our future. Our future joy finds expression in the culture we build now. Maybe in the future, we shall one day gather on June 22nd, and I'll be able to wish you a happy Reparations Day. Meanwhile, we continue to meet and to protest until the philosophy which holds one race superior and another inferior is finally and permanently discredited and abandoned. Haile Selassie, one love.